Perhaps we start with our location. We are not at London Real Studios, David. We are on the Isle of Wight, your home, because you refuse to acquiesce, to kowtow, to comply with government requests for you to wear a face mask on the ferry trip to London. Why, David?
Well, I've refused to acquiesce to any of the diktats since this started. When they pushed in the lockdown and said in Britain you can only go out once a day, I went out when I wanted. And I said, indeed in one of our interviews, if the authorities want to come to me, people in uniform want to come to me and give me a credible explanation for why going out once a day and going near no one, and going out 10 times a day and going near no one, can possibly be more harmful to anyone 10 times than one, then I might consider acquiescing to their, or agreeing to their ludicrous rule. But no one ever knocked my door. And as I've traveled around England, mainland England, in the last few weeks, I've refused to give my name and details in track and trace to anybody. I've refused to put hand sanitizer on to get into a shop when, having seen 2/3 of the back of the bottle telling me how dangerous it is, and the Food and Drug Administration in America now issuing a list of 75 brands you shouldn't use because it's too dangerous, can cause blindness and death. So I've not acquiesced to that. And I certainly wasn't going to acquiesce to the mask. And what's brought this about is we have 2 ferry companies to and from the mainland. And what they've been running, I mean, just shows how ludicrous, contradictory, and insane it is. During this period of the lockdown, when you crossed with one called White Link, you had to stay in your car. You couldn't get out and go in the lounge. And because they said, that was the safest thing to do. All right. So you sit in your car and you don't have to do anything else. You just sit there and then drive off. Another company, Red Funnel, they were running certain routes, certain times every day where you had to stay in your car. So when this mandatory mask on public transport came in, you could still get across without wearing a mask, stay in your car. And what's happened? The 2 ferry companies have just stopped staying in your car, which is supposed to be, they've been telling us through the lockdown, the safest thing to do. Now you have to get out into the lounge and wear a mask. Not a chance. And let me tell you how ludicrous it is. In Britain, they've just announced that if you are coming back from Spain from holiday, you have to isolate for 14 days. The White Link Ferry Company, I did the other one, but the White Link Ferry Company has just said, if you're returning to the Isle of Wight from a holiday in Spain, you must tell us because we're going to make sure you have to stay in your car. So hold on a minute. So you're saying, because it's more dangerous coming back from Spain, yeah, they have to stay in their car. Yeah, because that's the safest thing to do, right? Yeah. But everyone else now has to get out the car, wear a mask in the lounge. It's incredible. And I was the first mask refusenik in Britain on public transport. I have to be because of the timing. When we did our last interview, I came from the studio down to Portsmouth to get the 1 minute to 12 boat back to the Isle of Wight. And I'm the only passenger. Everyone else is in their cars, and therefore on the crossing, they're staying in their cars. That's what they did at that time. I'm the only foot passenger. I'm the only one in the lounge, right? So it's a minute to midnight, and the rule, mask on public transport, including ferries, came in at midnight. So I'm standing there, and I watch all these people walk off, passengers. No masks, because it's not yet midnight. So we've got this extraordinarily stupid virus that attacks you by, the time of day and the date on the calendar. So they walk off, and I go to walk on. And they said, no, you've got to wear a mask. I said, first of all, it's not midnight yet, so you can't enforce that. So I walked on. And I walk up into the lounge. This is quite a big ferry, this one. There's no one else to be seen, just little me. And they actually gave me a mask, and I took it with me because it was a bit of a trophy, the first mask to be issued. And about halfway across, because the ferry left, halfway across, captain comes down from the bridge and she said, I just want to talk to you about the mask. I said, okay, yeah, go on. He was a nice chap. He said, I can understand, he said, why you won't wear a mask when you're the only person in the lounge, right? But he said, when we get the other side, would you put the mask on just to walk off the ship? I said, to walk off the ship past all those people sitting in their cars when I'm the only passenger? You must be joking, mate. Of course I'm not going to wear a bloody mask. And I walked off the ship without a mask. But then they kicked in this, you can't stay in your car. You must have a mask on the ship. And at that point, I said, okay, I'm staying on the Isle of Wight then. And I will not acquiesce. I have my food delivered now. There are shops on the Isle of Wight that are intelligent enough not to push this stuff. And so you can go in without a mask and get some stuff. But you see, two things. Given what I'm doing and what I've been doing for 30 years, and part of that is encouraging people not to acquiesce to the impositions by authority and the deletions of freedom. I'm not someone who says, oh no, I'm not going to follow this law, I'm not going to follow that law. I look at it and I say, well, okay, is it justified? And if it's justified, that's fair enough. I'll go with that. But when you are imposing things, not for anyone's health, and we'll get into this, but purely for means of control and behavior modification, which is what this is really all about. It's not being driven by health. It's not being driven by doctors. It's been driven by psychologists. There's a lady in Britain called Professor Susan Icke, and she is one of these scientific advisors to the government. Goodness knows why. She's also a member of the Communist Party of Great Britain, appropriately, I would say, given this is all about bringing in forms of Marxism. And she's been pushing this mandatory mask agenda. Well, she's not a professor of health. She's a professor of psychology. And that's what's driving this. So when I look at this mask situation and I say, I can see that this is not about health, this is about control. And it's about changing the nature of human behavior. And also destroying the sense of individuality. Because what they want with this AI connection to the human brain, which they're talking about and want to bring in around 2030 is the year they've been giving. They want to create a hive human mind where basically you're just a computer terminal with no real individuality. And one of the stepping stones to this is to put masks on people's face. And your individuality's gone. Your humanity's gone. I was on a radio show the other day, and I said to the host, I wonder how many people have walked past people they know when they're in a mask and haven't recognized them. And the host said, it happened to me today. I'm someone who's been exposing this for 30 years and encouraging people to not acquiesce with their own enslavement. So there's no way I'm going to acquiesce with my own enslavement. I mean, what credibility would that be? So I'm not doing any of it. And, if they keep coming towards me with more and more impositions to the point where, and it is the agenda, if they think they can get away with it, they'll go for it. It's in the script that everyone has to wear a mask outside their home. In fact, there are lunatics in authority in places like Florida who are telling people to wear masks in their own home if someone's there that's not usually there. But if they do that, If they say you can't leave your home without wearing a mask, well, obviously, I'm going to leave my home because I'm not going to be put under house arrest by a bunch of psychopaths and idiots, which is the combination that's doing this. So I will go out and I won't wear a mask. And what happens then happens. If they fine me, I won't pay the fine. Well, we'll put you in jail. Well, go ahead, because I ain't acquiescing to you. Because I do understand, Brian, I completely understand why people look at this situation with the masks and they say, I know it's nonsense. I know why they're doing it, but I've got to get to work to feed my family. I've got to do this to feed my family. Completely understand that. And I'm not saying because I'm doing it that everyone else should do it and you're all wrong if you don't do what I'm doing. I'm not saying that. I'm saying my personal choice for two reasons. A, if I'm encouraging people not to acquiesce with their own enslavement, then the last thing I need to do is do it, or ever would. And secondly, I'm doing it for my own self-respect. You know, some psychopaths in the shadows through idiots in government are going to tell me I have to wear a face nappy or a face diaper, as you would say in America. What? Not a chance. You know, I put something on the internet this week, a picture of Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, and Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary, neither of which know anything about health at all. They're just reading the script. They're just spectators, really. But it's quite a thought that these two people who, in terms of understanding what's going on, don't have two brain cells to rub together, they announce something that people have to do, this pair of brats, and tens of millions do it. Well, where do you think that's going to end with that scale of acquiescence? So what I'm saying is, I do understand why people acquiesce, because they've got to feed their families and all that. I understand that. I'm not condemning. But I have to say this. If we don't stop acquiescing with our own enslavement, like now, then it doesn't bear thinking where this is going. And the longer we leave it, the more extreme it's going to be, and the more there is going to be to turn around in a much more extreme situation of dealing with it. Because how this cult works, that's behind all this, is it pushes the gate, and if there's no resistance, it goes to the next one, and it pushes that, and if there's no resistance, it goes to the next one. This is exactly the process, Brian, that we've been seeing since all this started. Constantly pushing the gate. And people have said in Britain, understandably, why are they making masks mandatory now, all these months into this so-called crisis, when the death rate's been going down? There's reasons why it's going down, which I'm sure we'll come to. So why are they doing it? It's because if they threw everything at us at the start, and if they had not paid furlough payments to people for those that lost their not lost their jobs, but lost their work because of the lockdowns and the business closures, and were they're still officially employed, but they don't work, so the government pays them some money. If they hadn't have done that, then this lockdown would have been over a long time ago, because there would have been such a reaction. First of all, how do I feed my family? And then all these other things out of nowhere, the masks and social distancing and all this stuff, in one go, there'd have been a massive pushback. And they know that because the way they manipulate the world is psychologically. It's all about controlling people's perceptions. So this is what they've been doing. We'll introduce this like the lockdown. We're just introducing the lockdown to flatten the curve. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. Back in the midst of history. And that was, we'll placate them. This is not long, no, just flatten the curve. And then you get them used to it. And then you go to the next one. And you get them used to that. And then you go to the next one. And now the part of the script where they introduce masks and start to subjugate people literally, visually, destroying their individuality, and also symbolism. It's why I've written so much about symbolism over the years, and why the occult and the satanic groups and the secret societies use symbolism, the language of symbolism. It's their language, because it's the language of the subconscious. And if you can, this is what they're trying to get. They're trying to get into the subconscious, because they know that once they've planted thoughts, perceptions, beliefs in the subconscious, they will filter through to the conscious mind, at which point the person will think they're their conclusions, their insight, their decisions.
Talk to me about the lack of self-esteem that someone has when they do something that they know isn't the right thing to do. You know, when I put a mask on when I know I shouldn't, and then it almost shows my subconscious that someone else is in charge.
Exactly that. So if you look at the mask from a conscious mind point of view, it's protecting you from a virus. Brackets, it ain't really, but they tell you it is. But what's it saying subconsciously? When you are symbolizing, and you see them on the internet, not least with all this censorship that's going on, what do people do? What images do people post when they're symbolizing being silenced, being censored, being subjugated, being cancelled, as it's called? They put something over the person's mouth. And now we've got something over the mouth of the great majority of the population. It's a symbol of subjugation, it's a symbol of being silenced, and it's a symbol of submission. Because we go back to the said bunch of prats that are actually in government, carrying out the agenda of the psychopaths in the shadows. And they announce that people are going to have to mandatorily wear masks. I mean, who are you people? It's against all the science and all the science that points out the health dangers of doing it. There's been no risk assessment by government of wearing masks regularly, none of that. When what are you doing? You're breathing in your own carbon dioxide, very dangerous, and you're not breathing in enough oxygen. But they do it anyway, which brings me round to the point that you've just made. It's a point that I've been making for weeks now. It's about, again, it's in the subconscious. It's about giving away your power and your sovereignty to some external force, the said bunch of prats and psychopaths. Because if you say to me, and you're a political leader or whatever, and you say to me, we're going to introduce this, and we're going to make you do this. If I say, hold on a minute, okay, let me look at what you want me to do. And I then research it, and I see if it makes sense and is any way justifiable in the circumstances before us. And I might say on occasion, actually, I can go with that because it makes sense to me. Now that's me holding on to my sovereignty and my personal freedom, because I'm making the free choice to say, yeah, okay, this makes sense to me, so I'll go with it. That's very different to what is happening. And the reason there are so many contradictions and so many holes in what we're being told to do is pure psychological manipulation. Quite simply, if I can make you acquiesce to something that's clearly ridiculous, clearly unsupportable, clearly a danger to health, and full of contradictions, and you're still going to submit and do it, then what is left of your uniqueness, your sovereignty, your self-respect? What's left? There is none. And talking of contradictions, I was outside a farm shop on the Isle of Wight the other day, and they've got the masks thing, so I don't go in, I get it delivered. But I went there to pay, save them coming to me. It was all done outside. And there's two ladies standing at the entrance waiting to go into the shop, because only two people are allowed in. And I looked at them, and they're wearing masks. I'm not kidding, Brian. They look like a pair of bandits about to raid the place, right? So they're standing there. And just here, because there's a cafe at this farm shop as well, is a table, and there's about, must be 12 or 13 people, clearly from different families, all around this table, right next to these people, wearing masks like bandit masks, to go in and buy a loaf of bread. And you look there, it's mad. Look, what? And a member of staff came out, and I said, look, they're standing with a mask on, and they're sitting around a table having a great time. She said, yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Yes, it is. So why are we acquiescing to it? Because when we do acquiesce to that level of crazy, we are submitting our uniqueness and our sovereignty and our self-respect almost completely. And I refuse to do it. I won't do it. I'll go to jail first before I'll do it. We'll see where we go from there.
Do you think more people should refuse to do it? Because otherwise, how will we ever make a change? It can't just be you.
Exactly. Well, let me give you a very good example of what I'm talking about. You see, if one person does something, they can pick them off and target them. They could do that to me. I look forward to it. But when very large numbers of people do it together, you see where the real power is. And it's not with these people in government and the psychopaths behind them. And I'll give you a wonderful example. A few weeks ago, on a very hot day, thousands of people, you remember it, thousands of people headed for the beaches. And there's so many people on the beaches, social distancing, forget it, mate, no chance. So everyone's sitting there having a good time. And what do these people tell you is the quickest way to kill a virus, even if you believe in it, and I certainly don't? It's sunlight. So the authorities should be saying, oh, they're out in the sun, that's great. Oh no, put a mask on, stay at home. Anyway, all these people are on the beach. And the authorities issued an emergency alert because of what was happening. These people in their thousands are on the beach and they're not social distancing. This is a major alert. All right, major alert, people. So what are you going to do about it? Well, there's nothing we can do, is there? There's thousands of people on the beach and they won't cooperate. Exactly. What if those thousands of people refuse to wear masks in shops? In shops in Britain, by the way, where the shop staff don't have to. And you can go into a bar without a mask. That's not a problem. You can't go into a shop. What am I describing? All these contradictions, and if you go with the contradictions, even though it's ludicrous, you are giving away your power on a monumental scale, because you are simply doing what you are told, no matter what you are told. And if people would just refuse to do it, okay, you're traveling on a train. Okay, so people in the carriage refuse to wear masks. What are they going to do? What's the guard going to do? Are you going to call the police when the train arrives at the station? Well, you've seen how many people they're going to have to arrest? They won't bother with that. It's a matter of doing it in numbers, and to start that rolling, someone's got to start it, because then we'll see where the power is, and it's not with the authorities. You see, what this government did, and this applies to the world. I'm talking about Britain now, but this applies to the world. What this government did with this mask, mandatory mask in shops, they said, the shops don't have to police this, although some of the big ones like Tesco's are doing that, which is why they'll never get a penny of my money again as long as I live. But it's the police that have to do it, okay? So let's look at all the shops in Britain, in fact, all the shops on the Isle of Wight, come to that, and let's compare it with the number of police officers, right? It's unenforceable. But what are they doing? They are relying on the fact that people will do it anyway. And that's what's happened. And what I'm saying is, if you stopped doing it and refused to do it in numbers, then the next gate couldn't be pushed because they can't get through this one yet. And if we don't start doing this, and I know, people are frightened of authority, they're frightened of challenging authority and not obeying authority, because that's what we're programmed purposely to do. You come out of the womb, and very soon you're sitting at a desk, and an authority figure is telling you what you can do and can't do, when you can eat, when you can talk, when you can go to the toilet, and all these other things that happen once you enter the school system. So, and then there are punishments and rewards for obeying authority or not obeying authority, all the way through your formative years, because they are preparing you for life to be acquiescent to authority and to fear challenging authority. I never learned that one. I must have missed that meeting. And so I know because of this that people are reticent. But all I can tell you is, if people go back to that first interview we did, and I said what this was all about, even before lockdown came in, and where it was going to go, how did I know that? How could I know that that's now played out? Because there is an agenda, which if you uncover it, allows you to predict the future, because unless the agenda is challenged and prevented from unfolding, it's going to happen. It's going to be the future. And I say from this point now, as we sit here, that where they're about to go will make what we've had so far seem like a afternoon tea. Because this script is meant to get more and more and more extreme. And they are going to go hysterical not too long from now, as you go into the fall and the winter, where every sniffle and every cough and every respiratory problem and every flu that they can get away with will be COVID-19, and they will use that to justify levels of lockdown, imprisonment, beyond even what we've seen at the peak of this one. So I know it's intimidating for people, but I tell you what, when you do it, you'll realize it's not as intimidating as you thought it was going to be. But what I'm saying is, if we don't summon the courage now to push back on this, or not even push back on it, just stop cooperating with it. There's no need to fight the government or fight the cult behind government. There's no need to go on protests and wave banners. No need for any of that. You just need to say no. I'm not doing it. We're not doing it. And then you'll see where the real power is, because you'll realize that enforcing it without our acquiescence is impossible. And if we don't do it now, then when are we going to do it? Because we have mandatory masks now in shops, and even wider afield, in places like America. Mandatory masks on public transport, but the script includes mandatory masks for children all day at school. That's what the script involves when they get further through the gate pushing sequence. So are we going to draw the line then? And what they're doing, you see, Brian, is through all this process, this sequence, they're breaking down and breaking down and breaking down resistance. So further along the road, when the extreme of extreme stuff is in the script, then the plan is that they will have broken down human resistance to the point where they'll just accept it. Now is the time to say no. And that's all it takes, no. You know, I go into a shop, they say, you've got to sanitize your hands. Oh, all right, I can't come in if I do that, right? I can't buy anything. No, okay, see ya, have a nice one.